I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, that we are on the traditional and unceded lands of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations. And my name is Jennifer Kask. I'm a family physician in Campbell River, which is on the Lac-Ouachita territory. And I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter. She's going to be presenting today on appetite to play, building capacity of early years providers to promote healthy eating and physical activity. Now, everybody knows that the most important thing you're going to do today is take something away, but also you're going to fill in the evaluation. So take a look. There's a little blue evaluation. All right, come on up.
Okay, test, test. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, good. Okay, awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Fakih. I'm the Provincial Lead for Early Years Health and Wellness at Child Health BC, which is an organization that really focuses on quality healthcare services for kids. Yeah, sure. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. We'll do that. So I'm from Child Health BC, and today I'm talking about appetite to play. And my title of the title of my presentation is "Building the Capacity of Early Years Providers to Promote Healthy Eating and Physical Activity." So it's a provincial program that encourages healthy eating and physical activity early with kids 0 to 5 years old by supporting their early childhood care providers. And the basic premise of the work is this, if there's one thing that you can take away from this, is that if the trusted adults in a child's life encourage healthy behaviors early, it will lead to long-term healthy behaviors in the future and throughout the life course of that child. So let's get started. So just starting off, I have nothing to disclose in terms of disclosure, so we'll move forward from that. Okay. So we know that to encourage healthy growth and development, young children should receive support from their parents and caregivers that allows for an active lifestyle with a daily balance of physical activities, decrease in sedentary behaviors, and a variety of nutritious foods and sleep. But the environment that we live in as a society we face today makes it very difficult. In general, there's much more marketing to kids around unhealthy foods, so highly processed foods. There's also, in general, a lower intake of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, as well as more sedentary behavior and increased screen time, as well as decreased physical activity. In fact, according to the 2015 Canadian Community Health Survey, on average, children are not meeting their needs for fiber and potassium, which tend to come from fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and they're exceeding their need for sodium salt, which tends to come from highly processed foods and eating out. And the other thing is that only 62% of all 3 to 4-year-olds meet the daily recommendations of about 180 minutes of physical activity per day. And additionally, around 70% of the time, children are, when they're in childcare environments, it tends to be sedentary behavior. So enter appetite to play. Child Health BC, with funding from the Ministry of Health, created Appetite to Play with provincial partners to really help early years providers create environments that support and promote food literacy, healthy eating, physical activity, and physical literacy with kids from birth to 6 years old. Kids in childcare, which is approximately about 50 to 60 kids in British Columbia are in childcare, spend about 2/3 of their waking hours in childcare settings. So it really makes sense to start focusing on early childhood educators as a profession to create environments that support healthy eating, physical activity, physical literacy, etc. They care for children on a daily basis and have the ability to impact and influence their lives. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about Appetite to Play. Our main audience are childcare providers. So that's really anybody that cares for kids 0 to 5 years old. It could be a childcare center, it could be a daycare, it could be a preschool, etc. We focus on them. We also have some secondary audiences that we know are very important to childcare settings. So they are dietitians, so they do a lot of health promotion work, especially within the health authorities, promoting, healthy eating, nutrition, etc., with these audiences. Licensing officers that regulate childcare centers, public health nurses, and really anyone in the health promotion and prevention profession. So those are our main audiences. And the components of Appetite to Play are as follows. So we have a web resource. The web resource is a free resource that anybody can go to and get tips, ideas, games, activities, and recipes that they can put into their childcare setting, and they can integrate into their childcare setting. We update that on a weekly basis. We have training, so food and physical literacy training for early years providers to really increase their capacity in the field. We have some recommended practices for childcare providers on what they should actually do in their setting to promote healthy eating and physical activity. We have support for childcare providers, so we are constantly inundating them with information and e-newsletters, etc. And then we also provide some networking opportunities for them as well to really just share some best practices and to talk about these two topics with each other. So I don't have time to go through the website, but I do encourage you to go to appetitetoplay.com. And it's sort of set up like a scrolling type of website. So almost as if you were going on Pinterest or Instagram, where you can just consistently scroll and get different ideas. So we have, different games that childcare providers can implement in their settings. We have different recipes. We have different tips and ideas. And it's updated on a regular basis, so on a weekly basis. And it's written by physical literacy experts as well as registered dietitians. You can also save and print and create different types of basically weekly planners when it comes to physical activity and healthy eating. So I encourage you to go there. The website engagement so far is year to date, we've had over 40,000 visitors, and the rest of the statistics are there. But what I wanted to say is that we have about 4,000 visitors per month, which is for us really great with very little advertising, about 7,000 page views, and we have about 700 people returning every month to get more ideas for their childcare setting. These are our trainings to date. So we have about 4 offerings. We have something called Food, Feeding, and Physical Literacy. It's an in-person workshop as well as an online workshop. We've had a little over 3,000 childcare providers take that course. We have some e-learning modules that childcare providers can take on their own. It's a sort of a self-guided module. And then we also have a module now on outside play and risky play that we did in conjunction with Dr. Mariano Brusoni, which many of you probably know. She's an expert on outside play and risky play. And so we partnered with her to launch a new module in 2021. And we have about over 400 early years providers who took that course. So what is the impact of this? We know that through our surveys, we have increased knowledge and confidence of early years providers in physical activity and healthy eating. We've increased their intention to promote healthy eating as well as their motivation to promote healthy eating and physical activity. We've increased their sense of access to resources so they know where to go if they want to get more information and they want to encourage that in their settings. And then the other thing is that when it comes to outside play and risky play, we know that our modules really support the intention of early years providers to provide more risky play opportunities as well as outdoor play opportunities. And the other thing is that we're also encouraging people, particularly early years providers, to increase their policies. So really create some policies that would be supportive of all of these different concepts that I outlined today. New directions, we are continuing to expand, so we will be developing a new module on the Canada's Food Guide for the early years, as well as we know that even though about 50-60% of children are in childcare, there's about 40 to 50% who aren't. And so what we want to do is now go and support parents and bring Appetite to Play to parents through our provincial partners. Okay, so I encourage you to follow us on appetitetoplay.com, and those are our social media channels, so feel free to follow us. And then also a big thank you to the BC Patient Safety and Quality Office for Council for giving us this amazing award for optimizing the early years. Okay, that's good.
I have sort of two. One was I'm interested to know what, in a childcare setting, what you are encouraging for risky play, because that's exciting for all the parents who are afraid to have their kids do risky behavior. And then how do you suggest to support some of these smaller settings for knowing that fresh food is so expensive today?
Fresh food is so expensive today. Yeah, and I think that's a really big, it's actually one of the questions for this presentation is what is one of your struggles here? And I think that is one of our struggles as well, is that we're encouraging healthy eating, we're encouraging, Canada's Food Guide, but at the same time, we also have to take into account the fact that things are becoming more unaffordable, the fact that there's not really access to these fresh items. And so we do have a lot on our website around, developing meal plans on a budget, developing and providing tools on just how to navigate that as a childcare provider. And I think that we'll have to do that more and more, especially given, the state of the economy. So, yeah.
Risky play. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So your question is around encouraging it in smaller settings. Was that the question?
I wasn't sure. I don't know what risky play is that is encouraged, and I'm intrigued.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see. Yeah, so risky play is really about kids taking chances, taking risks in their play. And so the definition oftentimes is not, the same. Risky play doesn't apply to everybody, to every single child. So it's really about encouraging children to take chances, to take risks, to take to basically build their self-efficacy. So how do you do that? And you give them environments where they're able to test something out. They're able to, and it could be something very simple. So sometimes even the chance of getting lost in a room is an example of risky play. The example of rough and tumble play, or the example of playing at heights. So there's a whole bunch of different examples of what that could be, and it really depends on where the child is at. Yeah.
You mentioned that you're not doing too much advertising for the website. I'm just wondering, how are early years providers encountering you? Like, do they have to kind of already be interested to improve what they're doing and then seek you out as a resource, or how are you reaching them?
Yeah, really good question. And I think that's one of the successes of Appetite to Play, is that one of the reasons how Child Health BC is situated is that we cannot do our work without our provincial partners. And so we use avenues that we know early childhood providers already go to. So for example, one of our one of our advocates is ECE BC, or Early Childhood Educators of BC. So we oftentimes connect in with them, and they support. We know childcare providers go to them for professional development, et cetera. So they actually promote a lot of the work that we do. The other one are childcare resource and referrals, which are situated across the province for really childhood providers to go and get professional development, and also parents to get resources. So they're a big partner. And then also our licensing officers. So licensing officers are folks that work in all of the different health authorities and look at the childcare settings or all of the childcare centers that are licensed, and support the early childhood educators that work there, just to make sure that they're up to speed with like regulations, et cetera, et cetera. So partnering with them has probably been the biggest boost for us, because childcare providers tend to listen to them. So that's sort of, so through our networks, it's how we've been advertising. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and connect with Sana after, because I have so many questions. As somebody who grew up in the 80s, I have so many questions about risky play.
Jungle gyms, the merry-go-rounds that don't seem to be allowed anymore, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So our next presentation is on Spirit of Healthy Kids. So come on up, presenters.
Great. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. My name is Breanne Frenkel, and I am the coordinator of community funding programs within Population Public Health at Northern Health.
Hi, and I'm Lindsay Seegmille. I'm the regional manager for the Healthy Settings team at Northern Health within Population and Public Health, which includes community granting.
And I just want to touch on, oh yes, we don't have anything to disclose. And so the community funding programs at Northern Health are granting programs in place to support community level organizations accessing funding for projects addressing upstream health and wellness initiatives. However, today I'm here to speak to you about one of those, and that is Spirit of Healthy Kids. Okay. So what is Spirit of Healthy Kids? The Spirit of Healthy Kids program is a program built on the power of positive role modeling and has grown through innovation and evaluation. The aim of this program is to create a supportive environment for all children to develop healthy behaviors. By engaging with children at a young age, we are establishing healthy habits that will support the maintenance of health throughout their lifespan. This program includes the delivery of key health and wellness messaging into schools, followed by the launch of a school-wide challenge with track participation, as well as the creation of interest through participation incentives, such as grant funding for school projects and prizes for the participants. The program's work is defined by the process measures that align with the concept of healthy schools. The main feature here is that we are fostering supportive relationships between students, their families, school staff, and the broader community. As we create a widespread culture of wellness through our schools, our communities at large thrive as well. Got a point, sorry. There we go. In the program's first 3 years, the focus was largely based on reading and physical activity. During those years and through the tracked participation, we learned that students averaged 4 hours of reading and 9.5 hours of physical and healthy activity time during that 2-week challenge. In those early years, there was a clear demonstration of just how northern communities were becoming empowered through teaching students health-promoting behaviors, practicing compassion, and supporting healthy communities. We saw the habits created during the 2-week challenges start to expand into the children's regular routines and into their everyday life. We received many forms of gratitude from parents for this program. However, one father in particular wrote to Rowdy Cat, who's this guy right in the middle there. That's the Prince George Cougars mascot. And he wrote to Rowdy Cat to say that he had a son that had dealt with literacy issues and how hard it was as a parent to positively encourage reading at home. However, his son came home and mentioned to his dad that the Cougars and Rowdy Cat had been to his school for an assembly, and that he needed to read, and he needed to exercise, and he needed to be active, and he needed to be kind to others. So the father was just so thrilled to see the excitement come from his son who had struggled previously. And he mentioned that since that day, his son's relationship with reading had evolved from what felt like an unwelcome chore to a desired hobby. So this is the program's progression. It was launched in 2015 by the Prince George Cougars and offered through School District 57, which is based in Prince George. It was labeled Read to Succeed, and that program promoted the belief that daily reading and physical activity were healthy additions into the children's lives. Cougars players were trained to deliver in-person, empowering, positive messaging at local school assemblies. And then in 2016, we saw the partnership between the Spirit of the North Healthcare Foundation and Northern Health. And at that same time, we also saw the expansion of the key focus areas as we stepped outside of literacy and physical activity. And we added focus into the messaging with tobacco prevention, dental health, philanthropy, healthy eating, mental health got and added, I think, in 2017, 2018, and then as of recently, immunization. Yeah, I'll pass it on to my colleague here.
Okay. So as Breanne mentioned, in 2016, the Prince George Cougars approached Northern Health and Spirit of the North Healthcare Foundation to form what might seem like an unlikely partnership. What this partnership created for us, though, was an opportunity to get health messaging to students through influential people in their lives. It took it out of the health authority and brought it into people that the students were already listening to, already familiar to. It took it away from their parents and from Northern Health Facebook channels. Each partner brought something different to the table. The Prince George Cougars offered up role models. So these are hockey players that are familiar to kids in the North who are, again, in their orbit, in their lives, in their scope of influence, I suppose. What Northern Health brought was health messaging. So we worked with subject matter experts to target a couple of key messages on health priorities that mattered to schools, to youth, and to the health authority. We gave those to the Prince George Cougars. They then put it into their own words and shared it back with students through a couple of different channels. And Spirit of the North Healthcare Foundation did something similar, but with philanthropic messaging. The three of us, the three different partners, shared the administrative and financial functions of the program, which did a lot in terms of offering up a more sustainable program. So when we came into the pandemic and Northern Health's our public health capacity to support this program was limited, we thought we were looking at having to pause the program until the pandemic was over, which obviously wasn't the way that we wanted to move in a time when students and schools were struggling. We had a conversation with our partners around what capacities changed, what can we do here? And of course, the Prince George Cougars were faced with much more capacity, given that in sport or in-person sports were paused. So we were able to shuffle around the workload and make sure that we could continue to deliver this program throughout the course of the pandemic, and that wouldn't have been possible with such a strong partnership. What this partnership was also able to do was to fuel different innovative quality improvement initiatives. And one of the things we're most proud of was our ability to regionalize the program outside of Prince George in 2019. So this program began in Prince George. It was a really good focus. It was a good starting point where we could reach a lot of kids. It was easy to manage and to wrap our heads around, but as a health authority, we're committed to serving the entire Northern Health region, which is huge. You can see it's represented by the blue, which I believe is 2/3 of the province of BC. It includes over 160 communities and about 300,000 people. So it's not a huge population, but each one of those communities is different, and within that community, there's a huge amount of diversity. There's different health equity challenges. There's a lot of different considerations in terms of how a program shows up, and what works in the West on Haida Gwaii isn't necessarily going to work in the East in Chetwynd or Fort St. John, and what works in Prince George and in our most urban center isn't necessarily going to work in Atlin in the far north. So that's one of our challenges as a health authority, is how do we develop programs and services that will meet these communities across the north where they're at, that will resonate and look familiar to them, but that we can also administer at a regional level. So we worked with our partners and we worked with the Northern Health Population and Public Health team to think about how we could shift this program. We did a couple of different things. We brought in a lot of virtual options, and we leaned heavily on our partners and networks across the north to get this messaging out to schools beyond Prince George. What this looked like in practice was that we could open up in 2019, we could open up the invitation to schools across the north. So this was 220 schools with 33,000 students, and it included our public schools, our independent schools, and our First Nation schools. They were all invited to participate. To formally participate in the program, you needed to submit an application that had a school health idea that you would use the grant funding that you could get by participating in the program. So we worked with 6 different schools. They ranged from Terrace in the west to Fort St. John in the east. And the students, as Breanne mentioned, embarked on this 2-week challenge to demonstrate their healthy and philanthropic behaviors. Every school that participated won $1,000 to put towards their school health idea, and then the winning school won $5,000. And that was in 2019. Vanderhoof Elementary School, which used that $5,000 to support a Healthy Foods Kids Backpack program that gave students in the school a backpack full of healthy food to take home over the weekend. We continue to work to refine this program so that students outside of the participating schools can participate, so that it has broader appeal to a bigger range of students across the north. But since 2015, we're proud to have supported over 18,000 elementary school students in this program. We're proud of the social change that it's influenced. We're proud of the school connectedness that it's supported, and we're proud that we've taken this with an undercurrent of health equity and the social determinants of health. At the end of the day, I think we are achieving, in the process of achieving our fundamental intent of sending kids home with healthy messages about healthy and philanthropic behaviors that they can apply in their daily life, that they can share with their family, and that they can carry forward through the rest of their lives. In terms of looking forward, we know there's still much to do and many improvements that we can make in this program. And one of the things that we're thinking about is who else could we engage in this program? What other voices might be worth using or partnering with to share those health messages with students and people across the north. So that's considering, hockey and Prince George is one set of leaders. There's much more in the north that might have appeal to other people in other communities or other areas. We're also looking at how can we further align with school and youth and health priorities to make sure that we're getting the right messages and the best messages to the people who need them at the right time. And we're looking at strategies to further engage with students to make sure that these programs actually incentivize them to participate and to listen to these messages and to implement them where it makes sense for them. Thank you.
Questions?
Hi. I'm curious about the Spirit of the North Foundation. Thank you. Do they typically Are they new? Do they typically fund initiatives like this? Do they fund hospital-based initiatives like some other foundations? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, typically, yes, they would fund more hospital-focused initiatives like other healthcare foundations across the North, but Spirit of the North, their former CEO, was particularly interested in this idea of how do we get a little bit more upstream, how do we work with kids in schools, and so they connected with this really particular program, and they had an interest in doing it in Prince George, and one of our thoughts is, are there other healthcare foundations that might be interested in seeing this take off in their communities, and could they contribute financially to it, but also bring in that philanthropic messaging, and bring in their local community. So it was a bit of a one-off and a pilot, but it's worked really well.
Where could we get more details on the program? Like, is this every year? When do you guys call for applications? How are you advertising to all the schools? That kind of stuff. Yeah. Do you want that one?
Yeah, so we just ran the program, and the Prince George Cougars had administered it again this year for us as well. So it's on the Prince George Cougars website. It's also on the Northern Health website. We have a webpage specifically for this program, and then I think, yes, the Prince George Cougars specifically have a webpage for it on theirs as well. So if you want more information and what the tracking sheets look like, that's all on their websites.
More potentially random observation in a lot of teens these days of all the e-systems, at least in urban areas, and their scooters and the e-bikes. And I live along the Spirit Trail in the North Shore, and I saw a family drop off, a handful of teenagers on their scooters. Instead of riding the day, and they were like, "See you later, Dad," instead of riding the day on actual bicycles, they're on their e-systems. And like, how are we, I'd be interested to see in the next number of years and long-term studies, how that's going to affect our athletic ability moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's, I don't know the answer to what that'll look like, but it's part of getting the right messages at the right time to the right people and constantly revisiting, okay, you know, what's going to land, what's going to have traction, what's going to make sense in that northern environment, and how do we bring those messages and those ideas and thoughts to the people who need to hear them in a way that's going to land with them.
Not exercising as much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great work. Are you seeing any of those learnings translate up to the parents and perhaps different behaviors that may transcend to the older generation?
I can probably speak to that on a personal note, just because my daughter was a participant in this program one year. And as a busy parent that's working, I'm not always putting the attention where I need to on that. So when she came home with this 2-week program and was ecstatic, Mom, we have to read, we have to mark all this down. I was like, oh no, not another, like as a parent, you're like, if you understand, you're like, no, not another thing I have to add to the list. But it started to get fun, and she has a younger sister. She wasn't in school at the time, but we incorporated it into our lives. And it's changed how we do, like, reading and physical activity. We have that set time now. So even though it was a 2-week challenge for us in my home, it changed how we scheduled that time moving forward. So.
It'd be amazing if you could capture that as part of your outcome.
Yes, it would.
Well, I have to say, I did my training in Prince George as a medical resident, and for sure went to Cougars games. And I think the fact that you've managed to get the mascot on your team, amazing. We, of course, as medical residents, went to watch the people watching the game, because that was the most exciting thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. But well done, guys. Thank you.
Great.
And
Thank you so much.
Our last presentation for right now is the needs for social prescription in BC, and maybe this speaks to some of those questions there. So if you want to come up and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. How's your day been so far? Great. Well, my name is Matthew Leung, and I'm part of Beyond the Conversation Society. I've been part of the society for 5 years, a little bit give and take. And yeah, we love to see better patient outcomes using a new mindset called social prescription. So social prescription is an idea. It's not really formally adopted in BC yet by healthcare providers. Our wish is to see this idea grow further in a healthcare setting. So 1 in 2 Canadians feel lonely in varying intensities. Suicide is the top cause of death is among the top causes of death in Canada. Social interactions have been decreasing due to increased use of technologies, and of course, the pandemic, social isolation is even more pronounced. So I have a question for you. When a client tells you they're lonely, any answers to how do you currently respond? Well, For me, when I ask my GP, doctor, or social worker, they might say, oh, phone a friend. Why don't you phone a friend, right? Why don't you go do some yoga, or talk to your family? Do you have family here, for example? But it's a lot of burden on the healthcare professional to have to answer this question and expect that, and for the patient to expect that the doctor will be able to, provide all the answers for them. So what if there are tools that could better equip the healthcare professional to succeed in someone that feels, to help somebody to feel less lonely and social isolated? I thought like a short video describing social isolation and social prescription, and it's created by healthylondon.org in UK. Some technical issue that we had before, but.
Many things affect your health and well-being. GPs tell us that a lot of people visit them feeling isolated, lonely, or stressed out by work, money, and housing problems. These are issues that can't be fixed by doctors and medicine alone. At its most basic, a social prescription offers the kind of help that doesn't come in a tube or a bottle. The idea behind social prescribing is to help you to have more control over your healthcare and find ways to manage your needs in a way that suits you. There are lots of different ways of providing social prescribing services. It often starts with a conversation, perhaps with a link worker, a support broker, or a community navigator. Whatever they are called, they are there to listen to you and put you in touch with whatever it is you might need in order to feel better. That might mean being introduced to a community group, a new activity, or a local club. It could be legal advice, volunteers to help around the house. It might just be information and guidance, a bit of inside knowledge on your situation and what local resources there are available. It could even be some support in how to create something new. Studies show that individuals with social prescriptions get better and feel better faster than those treated with medicine alone. And because it works, it's happening more and more. To find out how it can work for you, talk to your doctor, health professional, or local authority today.
Thanks for watching that video. Definition by Alliance Ontario, which start adopting social prescription, is that social prescribing is a holistic approach to healthcare that brings together social and medical models of health and wellness. It provides a formal pathway for health providers to address the diverse determinants of health using familiar and trusted processes of writing a prescription. QR code, you can get to that definition of the website, on the website. So a little bit about Beyond the Conversation, which I'm part of. Their mission is to take bold action and service to those who feel the pain and social isolation and loneliness through isolation, breaking down social barriers and the stigmatization of loneliness and social isolation. We have a global presence, work with youth as well as seniors. We have been developing tools and services by partnering with community builders in UBC, such as the School of Engineering, Psychology, and Business. So as the director of technology and Beyond the Conversation, I reached out to UBC when they have they want to have a capstone project, and we proposed a project to them to create a tool to help the adoption of social prescription. And and 5 students used our project for their final capstone project. And you can download the code online and actually get it working. We have a prototype. So different users can go to the app, and for the client, for example, they can pick different activities out there and that are customized to their personality, to their likes and interests. It's all a prototype right now, but they can connect with a peer support worker and chat with them. So currently in DC, there's Dr. Melissa Leung, who spearheaded the park recreation, and United Way has a senior social prescription subscribing program. But we would like to see, like, when you like to see it, if like more people adopt, or the health care community adopted more social prescribing across the board. So yeah, our wish is to bring social prescription to all British Columbians. Our ask is, technical help, coding, for example, or brainstorming, ideas, referrals, partnership with Beyond the Conversation, the email, and you can reach me, Matthew, at beyondtheconversation.ca. And touch with us.
Totally brilliant. Question. Ask question.
What is the uptake? Do you have numbers on the uptake of the program?
That's a good question. No. So the United Way, and they have different adoption rates. In Ontario, it's being adopted quite a bit. Actually, I found it in UK, where it's adopted like across the board right now. So we want to take it to Canada, and so for healthier communities. Yes, at the back.
In terms of the senior social prescribing, I know that I sit on the surgical patient optimization collaborative, and they are using, at least the one I'm doing at the moment at Peace Arch Hospital, they are doing senior social prescribing as part of that. So it's to improve patient outcomes surgically, post-op, by addressing social determinants of health preoperatively. So they are using social prescribing as a component of that, and I know that there's others in the Fraser Health region that are doing that as well. So I don't have numbers because that's just starting. They're just enrolling folks now. So certainly that is happening at this point in time.
Oh, that's very neat. Is it working well for you?
As far as I know, they're just starting to refer people to it, so it's not far enough along yet that they have results. So we're just identifying folks who would be eligible for it at this point in time.
Mine's more of a comment, but I had a seniors project in Powell River, and I had an interdisciplinary committee with physicians and local nonprofits and patient advisors, and everybody wanted something like the social prescribing. So we looked into it heavily and reached out to the United Way, but they were the only funders that I knew of that were kind of doing something like this and as a pilot program, and kind of got postponed due to COVID. And So we're kind of waiting in the wings in hopes that one day we can implement something like this. In the meantime, we made a bit of a self-directed social prescribing tool because physicians just can't remember every program that's out there and what's up and running at certain times. So we distributed that widely within our community and had some positive feedback, but it's really hard to know what the uptake is in actually using this kind of self-directed social prescribing tool. So thank you for that, and hopefully it catches on more and more maybe nonprofits get interested and are able to provide funding for a position like this.
Yeah, absolutely. As a director of technology, I'm really interested in like numbers, and so our tool actually wanted to like get some feedback, like see the outcomes, like how are the outcomes going, for example, like is it working, is it not working, and how can we improve, for example. But yeah, that's a great point.
We have time for a couple more questions.
I'm sorry, I might have missed that, but where we can find the app, like where we can download the app.
Well, you can contact me. It's on GitHub, so there's a code repository that you can download. It's a private repository right now, but definitely you can take a look at what the students have worked on. It's a prototype, but we are actively looking for more coders and people like you. Yes.
Thanks for the presentation, and just on the note of connecting with nonprofits and perhaps expanding throughout the province and the country, I'm not sure if you've made connections with divisions of family practice, in particular around their primary care network, service planning, development, and implementation. I say that only because I've worked with one of them in the Fraser, who actually indicated that social prescribing was one of their areas of focus. So anyway, just share that with you.
Division of family practice, okay. Thanks for letting me know. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all of our presenters. Please, we have a little bit of extra time, so fill in your evaluations before you leave and come and speak with all of them. These were excellent presentations. I think we're all going away with like thoughts and what does this look like in our own lives and in the lives of our community.